Hello and welcome to a special show analyzing the last eight. This is Hardik Agrawal and I have with me News 9 sports editor Sandeep Mishra. So Portugal won their clash against Switzerland 6-1 and they thrashed them. So it was a dominating display by Fernando Santos' side.
I think the way we were speaking about the team and about Ronaldo's role, so I guess part of it probably is correct that so much of attention on one great forward or probably one overage or aging forward you can call it. I think a lot of attention was taken now on the team and I think they just came into their fore. Switzerland, of course, I mean if you really look at that match once again and if you really look at the highlights or whichever part of the first and the second half, you will see that the defensive formations are not what they used to keep in the group stages. But at the same time, you just can't take the credit away from the Portuguese. They had a very, very tight influence on the game. And I think somewhere along the line, I don't know whether what we are saying or what I am saying about this is true. But I think because of one man sitting on the bench, the others got a certain amount of freedom to be able to play. Not to bring anybody down, but I think this usually happens when you have a big player in the team, and if that big player is not around, then suddenly everybody finds a little bit of their wings, that okay, we have the space. And I think that's where Portugal came into their own, and look at that result. And that result now, I don't know what you feel about that particular 6 result, but it now almost is virtually a favorite team now to go into a semi or a final in that sense. Though you still have so many of those big teams around there. Portugal probably needs to do 30-40% more to be a semi-final or a finalist or even a World Cup winner. But I think the result also allows a certain Cristiano Ronaldo to dream about a World Cup. So I think it also helps him in a way,
Also about Ramos, who scored the first hat-trick of the World Cup, who was there replacing Ronaldo in the first place. And he scored some very good goals. The finishes were very clinical. In one, it was struck with so much power that the keeper had no chance to stop it. And one attempt, he just dinged it over the keeper. So it was a good decision by Santos to start Ramos over Ronaldo.
True. I think you also need to the amount of, I go back to that, the amount of space that was afforded to the Portuguese in the Swiss box was just too much. I think that space, not to take away the credit for the goals or anything, but I think that space was just too much. And this was not the Swiss defense that used to be playing much ahead in the group stages. But the coach is back into his own from Portugal. The team is back into its own. And at this moment of time, their quarterfinal with Morocco, I think is now almost looking like it's from a 50-50, I think it just becomes a 60-40 match for Portugal. Morocco, of course, is riding on a high. But Portugal with these goals has got this amazing confidence now to move and literally dream of playing big in this World Cup now.
Also talking about Morocco, Morocco has kicked out Spain out of the World Cup. So what a performance by Walid's men. They have been exceptional at the back and they have shown the resilience and the character. Their captain's eyes was, limping in the final stages, but still he was there to support his team. Things like this go a long way in a nation's success, right?
I think if you don't look at those last 5-10 seconds where a Spanish cross, just virtually skimmed the post and went off, would have finished the match there. But I think Morocco's height at the back just came into its own in the last 10 minutes. You had so many crosses, you had those bobs going in, those lobs going in. And every time you could see a Spanish head not reaching. Even Morata had a great chance, but he couldn't reach. But a defender reached. I think that's the line that Morocco constantly played. And I think if you really looked at the coach in those last 10, 15, 20 minutes, even in extra time, he constantly was telling them to be in the structure, And I think it helps because when you are playing against Spain, when you're playing against Brazil, when you're playing against France, or when you're playing against England, your defensive structure is what makes you as a team. Your forward line is of course there, but then forwards already missed 2 goals in the last 20 minutes where the game would have finished. Even in the last 5 or 10 minutes, there was a good chance.
On counter-attacks,
But I think the tiredness showed in their legs. Minds were not working in conjunction with what was happening physically to them. But the defensive formation is what really impressed. And I think for Portugal, when they're looking forward to that quarterfinal, I think that's the area that they need to crack. It's the height of the Moroccan defenders that came into its own, and I think that became very crucial in those kind of stages. But I'm extremely surprised that Spain was,
The kind of players that Luis Enrique chose for the penalty shootouts was quite controversial. Why was Morata not there? Why was Pedri not there? And Busquets missing that penalty despite having so much of experience at club level. And things were just not clicking for
I
the
think
Spanish side.
even probably the last two substitutions that happened, I think when you bring in a substitution, even in the last 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or in just before the extra time, you need experience there. You just can't throw in a youngster, because you could see it was really not happening for them at that point of time. Morocco, on the other hand, was so much more energetic.
Confident.
When you get in a player who's half bandaged on his thigh, you know that confidence levels are high. Otherwise, you keep him on the bench and you probably don't want to take a risk, because you still have bigger games to come to if you're going to win. I think penalties was probably a big issue, and it was a mental thing. I mean, and it becomes something that you constantly want to think about and try and analyze, because this is not a small team that's going in for a penalties. Of course, their past record has not been great. They are like England at some point of time, but you do expect them to have that confidence to put it through. But on the other hand, I think you also need to basically speak about the Moroccan goalkeeper. Even in the last 10 minutes, you could see him smiling, you could see him egging on the defense, you could see him, he made a mistake where he came on when there was somebody else heading it, and then he gave him a thumbs up sign saying, okay, fine, everything is cool. That confidence was not in the Spanish team. Confidence was not even coming from the coach from the bench either. You could see he was worried. He was worried about what's going to happen in the penalties. I think that comes down to the players at some level. Morocco was riding a high. I mean, they kind of wrestled the game away. If you call it a wrestling match in the last 15-20 minutes, including the penalties, they wrestled the game away from Spain, which is a much, much higher ranked team.
Yeah.
That is like...
Spain is now the most unsuccessful team at penalty shootouts at the World Cup. They have, lost 4 of the 5 penalty shootouts in the World Cup. They are out of the World Cup. Last time they were out of the World Cup from a similar stage, last 16 stage. But getting back to Morocco versus Portugal, which will be the quarter final going forward. So what can we expect from this game? Can we expect Ronaldo to start in this game? How will the Portugal attack deal with the Moroccan defense here? Because the Moroccan defense has been very sturdy. They have not conceded a single goal in open play. The only goal that they conceded was through an own goal against Canada. So how will the Portuguese, who have shown dominance in their last game, get past this defense?
I think the one factor that will probably stand out for me is that when you're playing against Morocco, I think they're going to rely on crosses, and that is exactly the reason why Ronaldo might be starting there. They need those headers, they need his jump out there, they need him to unsettle the Moroccan defense. At the end of the day, he's an iconic player. You can't take away that fact. When that iconic player goes up against Morocco in a massively big quarterfinal, the defense gets worried. And I think he probably could be in the starting lineup. Whether he was benched for disciplinary reason, whether he was benched for tactical reason, you will see a change in the next match. They might play him simply because of his aerial, the kind of stuff he can create out of nowhere. I think that's the reason he'll be there.
But will Santos then drop Ramos, who have been exceptional, or will we see Felix on the bench?
I think you might see. I think you might see Felix on the bench, because at this point of time, momentum is important. You give players a chance who are in the momentum, who are in the rhythm, and confidence is there. And also, I think Ronaldo probably needed this. So there is a lot of chance that he just might be more egged on, that I have to tell the coach that this is me and this is Cristiano Ronaldo. It's like saying that I am CR7 and I'm not CR37. In that sense. Yeah.